going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. This is our top 10 hottest selling comics of the week, our weekly video series brought to you by PopCultureZone.com. Before we get into this week's top 10 books, don't forget to check out PopCultureZone.com's. Their links are below. Check them out if you're interested in getting your hands on some awesome exclusive and incentive variants at affordable costs, CGC slabs, and of course all different kinds of pop culture items, including toys and statues. And if you're buying raw books, they ship at a flat rate fee of only $4.99. Pop Culture Zone is also on eBay, where they still hold a 100% customer feedback rating with over 8,000 ratings this year alone. Those links are below. Check them out and make sure you follow them on eBay as well.
Props or flops, the top 10 look back. We take a look back at Cover Price's top 10 hottest comics of the week. You know, it's released on a Monday. Our show's on a Sunday. It gives it breathing room. Chris picks his top 3 most interesting books off that list, gives them props or flops. Let's get right into it. Chris, what do we got? And we have Spider-Verse number 6. At number 9, we have Thor number 2. At number 8, we have Batman Beyond the White Knight, issue number 1, second print, Virgin Foil, the 1 in 25. That's a good looking book, I have to say. At number 7, this book right here, people, this book, Vengeance number 1, the first appearance of America Chavez. If you don't know why that comic book is hot, I don't know what to say. At number 6, we have Captain Carter number 1, the 1 in 25 Marvel Studios animation cover. I love that cover. And if you don't know why this is popping, then I don't know what to say either. At number 5, we have Thor issue number 1, the Jane Foster Thor. And if you don't know why this is popping, I don't know what to say to you. Number 4, Exiles issue number 3. Again, if you don't know why, Chris, finish the sentence. At number 3, we have Assassin and Son, issue number 1, the Elder Messiah regular cover. Gorgeous looking cover indeed. At number 2, Chris, we have New Avengers.
My favorite book of all time.
7. What's that?
My favorite book of all time.
I don't believe that in the least. And at number 1, we have the Mighty Thor, number 326. All right, we're going to get right into it, Chris. How about it? You excited? You want to talk some top 10 look back, props or flops?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. What do you got for your first most interesting book? And is it props or is it flops?
Book number 3. Vengeance number 1. Yeah, there it is. There she is. America.
Look at that.
Chavez.
Photoshop.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this book. Okay. There's a lot to take in here. It's going to be fun, though. First off, the way I do this, just to give you guys a reminder, as always, we take last week's top 10. We are a week out now. So last week's numbers are when it hit the top 10. So when it hit the top 10, it had 111% upward trend in sales. When it hit the top 10, that week's highest 9.8 sale was $1,250. There was no 9.8 sold after that. But there is a couple auctions going on. Well, when I looked at these numbers today, I always do it today. So a few hours ago, there was 2 auctions running. Both were around or above that 750 mark. So who knows where they will end. Now, keep this in mind. Record high for this book in a 9.8 sold for basically $2,000, $19.99. But as I always say, don't get caught up in outliers, folks, because when that $2,000 book sold, if you look at the fair market value average around that same time, it was roughly about $1,500. So that $19.99 sale was, definitely way above just the standard average that was going on. And this was back a few months back when I believe we got the first trailer where we saw America Chavez in that trailer. Okay. Now, last week's average raw, when it hit the top 10, 258. This week's average raw, 275. That's a 7% increase. But of course, I always say, take the average raws with a grain of salt because you don't know how many are, lower grade, mid grade, high grades. It's a modern book. So you would think that the majority of them are decently high, but you could just have a couple of, 9.8 potential candidates in there that are selling raw that could definitely like skew the average up a little bit. So to me, I look at this and say the book is still basically doing what it's been doing. It's staying healthy. All right. I want to give some context. I recently, there's been some negative talk about this book since the movie dropped. Now, obviously, people came out of this movie. Some people really loved the character in the movie. Some people didn't, and that's preference. It's perfectly fine. But I want to make something clear. This book hit that peak of that 1,500 fair market value, that 9.8, when we saw her in the trailer. It did dip a bit since then, but even the raw, even the high raws peaked around that same time, and they kind of cooled back down. But since the movie, okay, it's still trending the same way, and it made the top 10 again. So that means units are moving. I'm not worried about this book, and because of that, I'm going to give this book props. I am not worried the fact that this book right now, it had a high of 1250 last week when the prior high was $2,000. I'm not going to sit and look at that and go on my YouTube and make a YouTube video saying, 42% crash or something like that, and sensationalize this subject for clicks and views and then distort the data. I'm not going to do that. The bottom line is that $2,000 sale was an outlier. Focus on the fair market value. The decrease in average fair market value for this book from when we saw her in the trailer, to me, and the raw books, not just the graded, to me it doesn't speak to this book. It speaks to the validity of the spec market right now as a whole. It speaks to the same trend that I've been bringing up week after week, Jeff. It speaks to the fact that it doesn't matter if it's America Chavez. It doesn't matter if it's America Chavez's mother's cousin's left foot. And I keep saying this thing. If that left foot has the first appearance in a comic book, when we see it in the trailer or we get a rumor, that book is going to spike. It's the spec market in general right now that, to me, is extremely volatile. Now, I'm not giving this book props to telling you to go pay even $12.50 for this book in a 9.8. I'm not telling you to pay more than that or less than that, whatever. I'm not telling you to pay $2.50 for an average raw. All I'm saying, so I don't know where this book is going to go in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months in terms of an up and down value. I give it props because I believe in this character, and I think long term, this book is here to stay, and I think it's going to continue to grow. Now, personally, I love the character in the movie. I didn't think that this character, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I didn't think this character would be so prevalent in the film. So that's one thing that is a fact. She is definitely very present in the film and important to the film. I thought she'd just kind of be introduced and kind of more of a side character. I love the actress. I love her portrayal, and I can't wait to see more. And I think there's a lot of other people out there that feel this way. And it speaks to the fact that maybe the price of this book is still down a little bit. The units are up. And that means people saw the movie and they're going out and they're buying this book. Now, remember, even though units are up, maybe a lot of people are selling this off. So it's creating a larger supply. Maybe when we saw the first trailer or when the peaks were going on there and that average was going up to that 1,500 and we got that 1999 peak, maybe people were holding. They're like, okay, we're going to wait until the release of the movie, or maybe, there could be a lot more in the market right now. Maybe people that are flippers and they're just flipping to get profit, maybe they're worried. Maybe they think, oh man, I better get rid of this now because I didn't like the movie, or I'm hearing people talk bad about the character. So now you have an influx of copies being sold on the market. So even though demand is going up, supply is going up as well. And that's why you see the value just kind of still hanging around that $1,000 to $1,200 mark in that 9.8. But that could change even in the near future if people come out of this movie and keep buying the units like they've been doing the last couple of weeks. But like I said, Jeff, love this character in the film. Can't wait to see more of her. And let's talk 5, even I was going to say 10 years, even 5 years from now, and let's look at this book. And I would stand confident and say that this book is going to be worth more than it is going for right now.
Yeah, I have things to say, but before I do, some of you may have asked why Dan wasn't on. He couldn't. He's actually closing deals on the golf course, and he's listened to us. So we just want to say, what's up, Dan? We appreciate you and love you. And we got Tom Tormey.
That's
the comic history. Y'all need to be following him as well. He's doing amazing things too, and we appreciate you greatly. Just want to throw that out there. People who have been involved with this show so many times and in so many ways. All right. So as for that book, specifically, I feel like I'm too close to it, Chris. I know people that, we talk about this representation matters. I think this is a very important character in society, period. Again, I think I'm a little too close to the subject material in a way. I have a lot of friends who see themselves in her. My daughter she's a quarter Latina. So, she could possibly see a little bit of herself in there. She also, represents, LGBTQT as well. So I'm not saying this is a solid investment because of that. I'm saying she's an important character, and I just think her first appearance means something. So I'm going to give it props for that.
Right. I want to make a little note too, and I don't want to get too deep into the politics of this, folks. But Jeff, saying representation matters. I think just for everyone listening, and maybe we all have our different perspectives on politics, I will say that I think when we say representation matters, it's kind of a political buzzword, So I think some people might get turned off by that and think that, we're just we're picking up what did we do? What did we do this week to care about social issues? Representation matters. We picked up our flag, right? And so I think when you say, though, I want people to know, when you say that term and when we talk about it, let's get away from just the buzzword and get down to what it means. And what it means is that these characters, and it's not even necessarily about race, right? But it is, and gender as well. But it's even about cultural representation. And we say that it's important. Let's not say matters. Let's say it's important. It's important because there are individuals out there that look at these characters and can relate to them on a very personal level. And I'm not here to say, Jeff, you can say this too, like, we can dive into a character that's Black or that's female, or maybe if you're Jewish and they're Christian, or if you're Christian and they're Muslim, we can still relate to them, right? We can still find that human core and things that are similar to us, because even with all of our differences, we have so much that is similar, right? But it is very, very important that we world build on these different experiences. People experience different things in life because of the color of their skin. They experience different things in life because of their gender, or because of their sexuality, or because of just where they're from and their culture and their ethnicity, etc. And I think that this character has the opportunity to, like you said, Jeff, not only speak as a LGBTQ or as a young girl or young woman, and as a Latina woman, they can really continue to drive her character to have deep rooted personal struggles that speak to who she is and the uniqueness of who she is as a person. And those people that are reading the stories or seeing her on screen and that have those similar things, they could say, man, that really hits home. So I just wanted to really kind of round that out, because I know there's people that could pick apart with these words that we use sometimes, and I want to make it very clear what we at least mean. We can't speak for anyone else, but that's what we mean when we say that.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it anymore, but I do have more to say on that. But anyways, props on that book from both of us. So we're gonna move on to your second book from this list. What do you got, Chris?
All right, guys. My next book, number 2, is Exiles, number 3. Look at that. Look at that awesome cover, man. I love it. I love it.
It is
Okay,
great.
let's look at this book, guys. Exiles number 3. First appearance of Peggy Carter as Captain America. Let's look at these numbers, and I'm going to talk about it. 95% upward trend in sales. Last week's high, 9.8, 500. That's when it hit the top 10. This week's 500. It didn't go anywhere. That's a good thing. Last week's average raw, 98. This week's average raw, 67. Ooh. 32% decrease in those raw. Now, I usually say take average raw with a grain of salt. This is a brand new book, basically. I don't think there's too many reader copies out there bringing the average raw of these values, raw of these down like that. That to me shows that, and I did. I looked at all the individual sales, guys. This book is already trending downward. Now, if you look at this book, even prior to the last few weeks, that average number was even lower. So that tells me one thing, and this one thing is very important to whether I give this props or flops. It tells me that people were specifically going after this book because of Peggy in Multiverse of Madness. And even if you haven't seen the movie, I'm not going to give away spoilers, but it was in the trailer. It was in that last trailer. We saw the Captain Britain shield, right? Now, Jeff, what other book made it on the top 10 list today that's relevant to what I'm saying?
What other book? Well, why don't we bring that up?
Yep,
Number
there it
6.
is. Captain Carter. Excuse me, I said Captain Britain, but I meant Captain Carter with the British flag. So there you go. So you got the Captain Carter. It's the variant, but still it's up there, right? Because we saw the shield, Captain Carter shield. I hate to break it to you folks, but it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter if you're on Instagram and there's people that will do anything to say that this person is the same person. They're not. I don't care. They're not. This is Peggy Carter from a different universe as Captain America. Different shield, different uniform, different mantle. And remember, mantles matter. Who we saw in Multiverse of Madness was Peggy Carter from a different universe as Captain Carter. Different uniform, different shield, different mantle. Different backstory. We saw that in the What If. It's extremely concerning to me that people are simply going after this book because they're relating it to Captain Carter. Now, look, why I say they're different characters, they are related, right? I mean, they are related because they are still both different variants or variations of Peggy Carter. So inherently, it's kind of like saying, let's see, what's it, Jeff? I don't know. Give me I guess like, what's an example of somebody that has a variant that has a different first appearance? I should have thought about this before the show. You got any off the top of your head?
A variant?
Yeah, like or a character that takes a different. I mean, how about a character that takes a different mantle? Right. What about Ben Reilly? What about Ben Reilly as Scarlet Spider?
Yeah.
What about Ben Reilly as Chasm or whatever?
I mean, what about those Miles what ifs you got going on right now?
Oh yeah, there you go. Or Miles what if is Captain America? I mean, it's still Miles Morales, right? But he's taking up a different mantle. Now, how you want to value that next to, but Miles is Spider-Man, like that's one thing. There's still different mantles. There's still different variations. I love this cover. When this came out, I should have bought this. I didn't. And I wanted it just because I thought Peggy Carter's Captain America was freaking awesome. That's what it was in my head. It had nothing to do with movie speculation or anything. And, and I think a lot of people felt that way when this book came out. And I like that about spec. And you know that, Jeff. I like that when people get excited about a new character in a comic book that doesn't have to do with movies.
Mm-hmm.
But props or flops on this one? Right now, I'm going to have to give this book flops because I think people went into this book just because of movie spec. And I just, and again, not to give away too much from the movie, and I don't want anybody in the comments giving anything away with the movie, but it's just, it's not who we saw in the movie. And I don't think there's staying power. I would like to see this book continue to, be a little cool key that people will seek after just because of Peggy Carter's Captain America. But I just don't think there's long-term spec value when it comes to the movies, unless somehow we get another variation of Peggy Carter, and I mean, you could do it anyway. You could go back, say Chris Evans comes back as Captain America, because he's living his life in some alternate timeline with Peggy. And what if he dies, and what if it's like the 60s and they're working with Hank Pym, and Hank Pym has, they recreated the super soldier serum, and Cap dies, and she has to, I mean, you can think of Marvel has the multiverse now. They have different timelines. They can do anything. And if we see Agent Carter turn into Captain America in the MCU, maybe people will come back to this. But for right now, I got to give it flops.
That's fair. But and we know Captain Carter is coming back in What If season 2. That's for sure. And I for better or worse, Chris, and I think you'll agree with this book will always be associated with Captain Carter.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, association is fine as long as you don't have a misconception that they really are like one and the same. I mean, they are a variation, so that relationship is fine. I just don't know long term if that's enough to, keep eyes on this book, or even keep a higher value up on it.
I agree. So shit, I guess I'd have to give it flops too. I agree. I don't see it as having staying value. Yeah, I have to give it flops myself. So, all right.
I would love to hear what these guys think.
Yeah, guys, put in the comments props or flops for you. We love all of the kind of like the longer answers. We love reading that stuff, but literally you could just put props or flops, because we would love for you to start using that vernacular and having fun with us doing that. All right, Chris, you have a third book as usual. And what would it be?
All right, everyone. This book is, first, I want to say I love when Silver or Bronze Age books hit the top 10. And it's a Bronze Age book. It's Thor 326. I'm not giving away if I'm giving it props or flops, though, guys. Let's look at these numbers. A lot of information here to take in, guys, so bear with me. First off, Thor 326. This is the first appearance of the second Scarlet Scarab. 551% upward trend sales when it hit the top 10 last week. Last week's high, 9.6. There wasn't a 9.8 sale, just a 9.6. $345. That's money. That's money for a 9.6. I mean, you could get the Wolverine #1 limited edition for roughly, it was hitting 5. I think it dropped down a little bit, but for a little bit more, you could get Wolverine #1 in a 9.6 for that much. So that's crazy. This week's high, 9.6, there wasn't any. There was no sales. Pay attention to this, folks, guys. Pay attention to this. Previous high in a 9.6 was $70. And that wasn't that long ago. It was less than a month ago on April 20th. Now, this high is a 393% increase in value from that sale. But this is a bit alarming. The previous high, 9.8, and there was only one. $30. Now, that was back in 2017, 5 years ago. We'll talk about that, though. Let's look at these average raws. When it hit the top 10, $37.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah. When it hit the top 10, the average raw was 37. This week, the average raw is 22. 41% decrease in value. Now, guys, I hope you watched Moon Knight. This isn't a huge spoiler, but it is a character that showed up. I do believe, I mean, it's all over the news and, Marvel Studios, and they've even commented on this, but we get Layla, she is taking on the mantle of Scarlet Scarab. Now, for those that don't know, this is a complete what's the word, like a retcon, so to say, of this character, because it doesn't relate to either. There's two Scarlet Scarabs in the comics. They are both male, but you know, we've seen them change characters up, but she's a completely different person taking on this mantle than both of them. And the first Scarlet Scarab in comic books made the first appearance in Invaders. I think it was Invaders 30, 31 or 20. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was another Bronze Age book in the Invaders run. And then there's the second one. So it's really interesting that this one made the list. The average raw prior to the Moon Knight show was $6. All right. Jeff, should I dive into this data more, or should I just say props or flops first?
Props or flops first. I think, yeah. And let's see what all you fine people think as well. Go for it.
All right, guys. I got to get some water here because I'm going to go in on this. Props or flops? This is one of the most interesting things I've seen on this list, and I'm giving it a big flops. Big flops. Invaders 23. Thank you, Azores. Guys, look. There's a few talking points to bring up here. First, you got to look at the fact of what this book was doing before we knew that Layla in the Moon Knight show is all of a sudden Scarlet Scarab. It wasn't doing anything. And we recently had a similar situation where I talked about the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man books. Issue number 6, El Muerto, the casting, and that shot that book up. I would actually say there's almost some more validity in that, because at least you knew this singer actor is playing the character right out of the comic books. This one is so weird because it's not even the same iteration, and then it's the second one in the comics. That is an awesome cover, by the way. So now let's look at this 9.8 sale of $30. Now it was 5 years ago, right? So a lot has changed. A lot has changed in the comic book market. I would guarantee that even if this book, say nothing happened with the Moon Knight show, if somebody bought this book in a 9.8 today without anything happening in the Moon Knight show, I could say indefinitely that it's going to sell for more than $30. I mean, it could sell for 60, maybe even 80, because it's a Bronze Age book. It's the first appearance of, a character that's not even a big character. But still, it could go for a little bit of money. But $346 in a 9.6. You got to put that in perspective of if a 9.8 hit the market last week. We know that 9.8s can sell from anywhere from double to 5 times that of their 9.6 counterpart. I could easily see a 9.8 of this book hitting $800, $900, even close to $1,000 with the way that people were buying up the 9.6. That's crazy. Now we go back and look at the average raws. Nobody was caring about this book. I could give you an example of what was going on with this book before we knew that Layla in the Moon Knight show was a rendition of the Scarlet Scarab. People were buying this book because they probably either one of two things. One, they just like collecting Bronze Age Marvel, or two, they're or they just like Thor in general, or three, they are trying to complete a run. And they were paying $3, $4, $5, $6, $7. There was a couple of $9 sales, probably high, raw, mid-grade. And that's fine. If I just recently completed my Thor run, if I didn't have this book, I paid $5, $6. I'd probably even pay $10 for it in a nice higher grade. It's a Bronze Age book. Hey, inflation, guys, inflation alone, right? But again, I brought this up on my last pick for Exiles number 3. Or excuse me, on my first pick for Vengeance number 1. when I said that little peak of even that book, that I feel that I gave it props, and I think long term it's props all the way. That peak, though, was an indicator of the volatility of the spec market. And this right here is a clear example, very similar to Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 6. This is a clear example of the socio-cultural and psychological impact of our actions on the comic book spec market right now. We are not thinking, we are being reactionary, and we are going out and we are going into these purchasing decisions with the fear of missing out on these, with the fight or flight mentality of the need to have it right now, the psychological endorphin exploding rush of needing it right now. And that is what's driving these books to these crazy numbers. And it's not happening organically, because I've said this before. We are not allowing supply to catch up with demand. And I'm going to give this example again, Jeff. As soon as we got Layla announced as the Scarlet Scarab, people went out and flocked to this book. But it takes time for flippers or sellers or dealers that have the book to catch on and say, oh, shoot, there's hype. Let me list this on eBay. Let me list this on Mercari or whatever it may be that they're selling this. So now that the hype comes, you get more and more people that have it to sell listing this on eBay and all the sites. And what happens? Supply starts catching up to demand. And that's how you get a $37 average raw be met with a $22 average raw the next week. A huge 41% drop in average sales. It's because those people that made those purchasing decisions, that made those buys, immediately, emotionally, reactionarily, on a reactionary type basis, they weren't doing their due diligence. They weren't sitting here and saying, well, what was this book selling for yesterday? Or if somebody starts bidding, they weren't setting a ceiling for their max bid. And they weren't saying, well, I'll pay maybe $15 for this, but if somebody outbids me, I'm going to stop and wait for the next one to be listed. It is the Bronze Age book, guys. It is. Okay? It's not a modern where you're going to find a plethora of high 9.8 potential grades. I get that. But still, in the great words of Mos Def, slow down. Slow down, folks. That's what I can advise you. Again, as we always say, Jeff, I'm not here to tell you what to buy or what not to buy. Go spend your money, blow your money. But before you blow your money spending $300, $400 on this book that, in a 9.6, if I can just maybe borrow $1, just $1, that'd be nice. My son's got to take the bus to school. And then you can spend your 400, whatever. But flops, Jeff, flops. I don't, look, let me, before I let you jump in, I'll leave it to this. I'll play devil's advocate. I love playing devil's advocate against myself. I love it. And it's funny because I still get accused of being a tyrant with my opinion and, I can't ever see different perspectives. Not true. Because I argue against myself. And I'm going to say, Chris, what if the mythos behind this second Scarab in the comic books, what did they build? First off, I thought Layla was badass. She was almost more badass than Moon Knight. That's why I was kind of disappointed. Yeah. Actually, I watched the last episode again, Jeff, and I liked it better the second time. But I'm like, man, she stole the show.
Yeah.
Maybe they can really connect her character to where it fits more into this. And look, that could substantiate people going after this book a little more. But right now, I'm telling you guys right now, all those people that bought the book last week for there was even sales, there were sales, raw sales that hit above $100. Those people, if they would have just waited, they could have probably paid $20 to $30 instead of paying $50, $60, $100 for this book.
Yeah, again, I'm going to reiterate the fact that like Chris and I are not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do, right? If this is a book you feel like you want to spend, what was it? Is it what, $345 for a 9.6? If it's worth it to you, do it. Like, honestly, Chris and I are just giving our, opinion on props or flops in terms of, long-term value of this book in relation to maybe the MCU or other affiliations with the character, maybe in the, comic books, what have you. I think it's a stretch. That's why I would give it flops as well. So I agree completely with you, Chris. I just find it baffling. It's insane how this book in a 9.8 went for $30 in 2017. It's incredible. So, but who knows? Who knows how they could connect this character to previous iterations, if there are that in the Marvel Universe history. There's always the multiverse, Chris. So we shall see. I don't know, but I would give this book flops as well. But you guys all make, hard-earned, it's hard-earned cash here, and you spend it as you see fit. And we will not have any sort of, we will not judge. And that right there, everybody, is the top 10 look back props or flops. We'll have a new list next week. Chris will dissect at least 3 books, right, Chris? Sometimes it's more.
Sometimes.
And he really gets into the data. So, again, really appreciate that one, Chris. Good job on that.